And you could go on and on about how everything has been flip-flopped on purpose. You could say the education system does not educate anybody. It actually makes them so that they can't think and can't actually use their own mind. That's why when you're sitting there for your 12 years of government indoctrination camp, you're not ever asked to do anything creative. You're asked to memorize what they tell you. And they want that because they want a bunch of obedient slaves. And the entire education system has been started hundreds of years ago with the intention to create factory workers and soldiers. That's the only purpose of it. And so they want you to be there on time. They ring that buzzer. It's all very Pavlovian. The whole school looks like a prison usually nowadays. And you go and you memorize all the mostly false information they want you to have in your head. And they'll never teach you anything important, like how the money system works, how central banking system works, how that's a big scam against humanity, of course, because they're the ones behind all this stuff. And you could go on and on. You could the medical system, so-called, or the health system, you could say, is mostly makes people sick. Most doctors today are just instead of saying, hey, you got to change your diet or get some exercise, which is pretty much the cure to almost everything, they give them tons and tons of chemicals, which gets them, it actually doesn't cure the problem, it cures the symptoms. And then years later, they have more symptoms caused by those chemicals. And by the end of it, they've got a fishing tackle box size thing full of pills from pharmaceutical companies, and they're as sick as can possibly be. So yeah, this has been on purpose, a lot of this stuff. And that kind of stuff was talked about. They talked about how this would all happen. And, this has all happened. You pointed out, you wrote it in 1982. You weren't too far off from the book 1984, which was focused on the year 1984. That talked about that. That was decades before the 80s. And we're well into 1984 right now. We're like in a mix between 1984 and Brave New World, which actually those were both buddies. George Orwell and Aldous Huxley were buddies, I think, at Oxford University, where a lot of these elitists go. They're both elitists. So they knew the elites and they knew what their plans were. So I think what happened is George said, okay, I'm going to go write the real, the tyrannical sort of like boot stomping humanity's face forever sort of angle that they want to do. I'll do that one. And Aldous said, okay, I know the other part of their plan is to make people dumb down, stupid, fill their heads full of just, football games and beer. Not that there's anything wrong with football games and beer in general, but that is all part of the plan, is to get people just into that sort of a state where they're kind of happy about their slavery. And so, yeah, we've had both those come to fruition, and like completely, absolutely. And no one seems to realize it. Nobody seems to really care. It's kind of crazy living in this world today when you live amongst so many brainwashed, enslaved people. It's very much like that movie They Live, where you put on the glasses and you see all the zombies. That's very much, and I can't watch television or movies. I see all the propaganda. To me, it's just so blatant that I just can't ignore it. And I just can't get into the show, whatever it is, because I just see all this stuff, just like I'm wearing those glasses and They Live. And I'm like, I can't watch this. Like, how do people watch this? And not to mention, too, that life itself is way more interesting than any movie or any other book I've ever seen. In fact, as I pointed out, we're living through right now 1984 in Brave New World in real life, in 3D, and really good graphics. It's like, a lot of people are watching like movies and stuff. I'm like, why are you watching that? This is way more interesting what you're going through right now, but they just don't see it whatsoever.